Hi, my name is Joe Calcagno. I'm going to be doing a short video today about rebuilding the steering gearbox on the first generation of Corvette. That's 1953 through 1962 Corvettes. The name of my company is Rare Corvettes. I have a website, rarecorvettes.com, and my email address is joe@rarecorvettes.com. So the steering gearbox on the early Corvettes, after you take it out of the car, looks kind of like this. This cast iron gearbox and a long tube, kind of like an exhaust pipe, called the mast jacket. The 1953 through 1957 Corvettes are about 1.5 inches longer than the 58 through 62 Corvettes. Other than that, they're virtually the same. I made a little jig to hold these while I work on them because it's rather a bulky thing and very heavy on one end. This is a simple piece of channel iron, 3-inch channel iron, with a couple of bolts drilled through and welded in one end of it here to make a mounting point for the steering gearbox. And this will hold all the steering gearboxes from 53 to 62. You don't have to have this. You can affix the steering gearbox in a vise, but I think it's better to bolt it on if you have the ability to make a bracket like this to help hold it. I'll hook it on now, and we'll have a look at it once it's connected. So here the steering gearbox is being attached to the bracket here with those two welded on studs that I mentioned. And I tighten it on just to hold it. This thing is rather bulky and difficult to deal with. If you try to do it on your workbench, it's going to be kind of difficult to do. This makes it very convenient and very rigid, so I can work on all aspects of this thing without it flopping around on me and so forth. The first thing you want to do is to remove the filler plug from the top and take this thing and prop it up over a pan, like a drain pan. So if there's liquid grease in here, it will drain all out. Otherwise, when you open the thing up, you're going to have oil running all over the place. It's supposed to have 90 weight hypoid grease in it, or EP lubricant, like transmission and rear end grease. And although many of them don't have any more of that grease in there when you take them apart, it's going to be messy and dirty inside, so it helps to drain it if there is liquid inside. And I've already done that and cleaned up the outside of the housing here so we can see the fasteners and how it's all put together. And we're going to now start to disassemble it. To begin with, after we've taken the fill plug out and we have drained the liquid and cleaned up the outside of it a bit, we want to remove the lock nut on the adjustment screw here on the side cover. This is a 5/8 wrench size. So we merely take that off. And then we're going to take out the 4 cap screws that hold the side cover to the steering gearbox. The wrench size there is 1/2 inch. And actually I have here an electric wrench, which makes it very fast and easy. The 4 side cover bolts, and these happen to be the original period head markings that were on the thing from the factory, so we're going to want to try to keep those bolts together and put them back in so that they have the matching numbers type characteristic on it. And then we take a screwdriver and turn the adjustment screw clockwise to help force the side cover off. You'll see in a minute what I'm getting at is, see now the side cover is moving away from the steering gearbox. And I'm going to put a trash barrel underneath here for debris that might happen to fall. Turning this clockwise will push the side cover off like so. So there's the side cover, and you can see a lot of old grease and so forth inside of it. Personally, I use paper towels. I use lots of paper towels in this process because it's very messy. And paper towels are inexpensive and easy to use. Seems like it can keep things a little bit cleaner that way. And I like to just wipe off each item as I take it apart a little bit to kind of inspect it at the same time as I clean it out, have a look at it, see if you can see any obvious defects. In the side cover here, you'll notice a set of needle bearings. A needle bearing assembly is pressed in there. We're going to replace this needle bearing assembly with a new one, which comes in the kit, and we'll talk about that in a little while. We'll put that now in the wash bin to clean it up. Now the sector shaft is still installed in here, and this is the adjustment screw that's located in a slot right here on the end of the sector shaft. You'll see there's a T slot here, and this adjustment bolt slides through that key slot, and on the adjuster bolt or screw is a shim washer. This is a hardened steel washer with a one-digit number stamped in it. I'm going to wipe this off and see if I can find it. Yes, there it is right there. It happens to be a number 5. That 5 denotes the thickness of this washer at 65 thousandths of an inch. They used to sell a package of shim washers in a series, and each one had a single digit denoting how many thousandths over 60 thickness this was. So this was a 65 when it was new. Probably now if we mic'd it today, it'd probably be 64 or even maybe 63 thousandths of an inch thick from wear. And there's also been some wear on the head of the adjustment bolt and also in the center of the sector shaft there on the T-slot. So there's been a little wear here which has enabled this adjustment screw to move in and out a little bit, and the book, the factory repair manual, calls for an end play of only 2 thousandths of an inch. So we're going to want to use the selective shim that comes with the Corvette Central kit, which happens to be 70 thousandths of an inch thick. So it might be a little bit too thick, and we'll talk about how you get it to fit properly. Even though it's 70 thousandths, it might be just a little bit too thick for some of the steering gear boxes. So we're going to put this in the wash bin right now. Now, in order to get the sector shaft out of here and the sector roller, if we look in here in the end, you can see, maybe you can have a picture, look in here with the camera. See if you can see that the sector roller is tipped over toward about 10 o'clock. It's tipped forward toward 10 o'clock. We'll remove some of the gasket here, and you can see that there's a key slot here at the top of the opening. There's a keyway slot cut in here which enables that sector roller to come out this way. So we're going to want to turn the steering wheel, which we're going to place on the other end of the main shaft, to rotate the sector roller up so it'll come out the side here. We'll do that now. Okay, here's the steering wheel from a 56 to 62 Corvette. You could use the 53 to 55 steering wheel, it would work the same. They had the 3-spoke steering wheel. I'll just pop this onto the upper spline like this, in any position at all, and I'll very carefully turn this to rotate the sector shaft so it's vertical, and it will come out through the keyway that we talked about a moments ago. And as you do this, you might have to push the sector shaft outward a little bit so that it won't bind up. So I use a steering wheel up here and I turn it carefully so I don't bind up and create any problems. And you can see it turning slightly clockwise. We get up here to where it's vertical, and then if you just tap the thing on the outside end, I'll have to use a rubber hammer, a plastic hammer here. Use a plastic hammer and tap this thing, it'll come out. There's the sector shaft with the sector roller on it. Here's the sector roller, which rolls around the worm gear as you turn the steering wheel. The reason they call this a sector shaft and a sector roller is it operates in the sector of a circle. Unlike gears in a differential or a transmission that turn all the way around, this gear set's designed to operate in the sector of a circle, like so, and so therefore they called it a sector shaft. Okay. So we have pulled the sector shaft out of the steering gear box and wiped it off a bit. As you can see, I cleaned it up a bit. There's still lots of grease packed inside here around the roller, but I wiped it off so we can have a look at it. And put that in the parts washing basket to clean it up more. And now we're going to remove the, you see, oh, look at all the grease that's inside these things. See, a lot of the time, as the steering gearbox gets old and begins to create problems, people will then remember that they haven't greased it for 35 years. So they'll pump grease in there. The factory called for 90 weight grease or hypoid lubricant, the same stuff that's used in the transmission and the differential. And I stay with that. I still use that. And the hypoid grease that we have today is even better than it was back in those days. And so, especially since we're going to take some extra precautions to seal this gearbox from leakage when we put it together, I personally can see no reason to use any other material other than what the factory called for when I put them back together myself. Now, a lot of people do use grease, as you can see right here. And I'm not saying that grease will ruin it or will fail to lubricate it, but I just prefer to always stay with the factory design. And since I take some extra precautions to seal this whole thing up when I put it back together again, we will talk about that, I prefer to continue to use hypoid grease.